morning from Berlin.
Good morning, everybody out there.
And welcome to day 3 of We Emerge Week. We already look back to 2 days of roundtables, action roundtables. I think a total of 17 we already had. And we discussed a lot of interesting topics, created solutions, and had really interesting conversations. Definitely make sure to also join the roundtables today during the day and in the coming days. But obviously, first and foremost, we're getting started with our morning plenary. And the whole day today is looking into one big question that I think we got like over and over again leading up to We Emerge Week. And that's one that especially concerns large corporates currently, is how can we manage at the one side economic recovery and often not so tight cash flow management, and on the other side, the need to transform and innovate. So how do those two go together, and how do we manage those two different speeds? That's a question that's overarching our day today and also for this plenary. And we're super excited to have 2 great speakers today. We'll be welcoming Cook, who's part of the executive leadership team at Equinor, Norway's energy company. And then we'll hear from Jens Lehmann, former national goalkeeper here in Germany. And he will talk more about teamwork and stress management in times of crisis. So incredibly excited for the day. And yeah, looking forward to spending it with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. And a warm welcome from my side as well. I think it's incredible to see how throughout the week, after 2 days already, we're building a concrete agenda for what we should all be doing in order to emerge stronger together. So we want to hear your voice and have your input there. See whether you can join one of the roundtables today or tomorrow. There's tons happening. And it's incredible to see these leaders from around the world come together to really talk about concrete solutions. So as Katherin said, working with big companies, big organizations, also in the public sector across the world, a key piece that we see and that came out of the of the interviews and the conversations is how, as a leader, but also our organization, how can we manage that stress between, on the one hand, really managing the negative impact of the crisis and at the same time pivoting towards the future. And managing those two levels or speeds, I think, is one of the key elements that we've seen that companies that are doing well getting a grip on.
Yeah, and actually, as every day, we have another concrete tool for you that will be introduced after Cook's insights by one of our team members, Annie. And this tool will be based on a concept that we want to introduce briefly to you now, because I think there are a number of strategies in there that actually help companies to achieve exactly that, to manage those 2 levels. And the concept is around the Do-School 6 building blocks for purposeful transformation. And we want to walk you through them real quick. And later on, you'll see how you can get started in applying them, reflecting on them, and getting started to work on them in your own organization.
So let's get started with the first one, and hopefully these 6 building blocks are going to be interesting reflections for you. So the first one is that we see that it's extremely helpful to use the volatility that we're all in to answer quickly the question again of why you're around. Why it is that you are needed as a company or an organization, and what it is that you're contributing. You might utterly disagree with Patagonia's Vote the Assholes Out campaign, but it puts Patagonia into a very clear position towards their customers, towards talents that want to come work for them, but also towards owning the space in their industry of being the leaders in what a good economy, what a meaningful way of doing business might look like. So don't underestimate the fact, pick up the conversation on purpose and see how you can align your people around your burning platform of what it is that you need to do in order to go forward.
The second building block is around skills and mindsets, and that has always been important, but I think the last couple of months have just brought up another level of urgency here, because on the one side, when we're talking skills, we're obviously talking about very concrete needs, partly of upskilling, be it around digitization, but also around remote leadership, collaboration, and these aspects. And also in terms of mindsets, and we talked about that in the past 2 days already a little bit, it's like, do you have the mindsets in your organization that are needed to innovate and to drive you forward? And so here the concrete aspect is to really go in and do a skills and mindset inventory, starting from the leadership team, but also taking a broader look, and then to work out a pathway of how you can strategically develop them, and not only by training people, obviously, but by making concrete offers of experiencing them, because especially mindsets, you can't learn them, by looking or getting trained on them. You need to really experience them so that they get anchored in your brain.
The third building block, I think, is key, and I keep hearing it over the last 2 days, and somebody said it very beautiful. They said, in times of crisis, unusual suspects find together. So I think what I want to urge all of us is to sort of be open and take advantage of the current opportunities to actually build new partnerships, new alliances, look at your SME and startup sector for innovation, look at the public sector for support, but also maybe for new ways and new business models of actually creating value for the company. And last but not least, even talk to your competitors and people in other industries. And we've seen that great companies are doing this very effectively right now. They're building new ecosystems, and this is what times of crises are for.
Absolutely. The fourth building block we briefly want to share is what we call building a movement. And this is really about mobilizing employees. And we're talking here about ways to really engage people. This is strongly linked to the purpose piece we had discussed in the beginning, and to help employees to attach themselves to certain goals or things you want to achieve with the company, and give them the tools and also the freedom to create a movement so that they can really get on board and push things forward.
The fifth piece from my side is related to what Katherin just said, and it's about community building and the idea of building a community with your suppliers, with your customers, with your employees, as a very strong sense of actually building a joint effort in this really difficult time to navigate volatility. And again, we've seen that this has been incredibly beneficial in not only informing strategy, but also in basically keeping up organizations to move into the right direction.
And then the last building block actually again comes back to the purpose piece, and this is about creating and also measuring and communicating your impact. And I think that's one area where I've seen lots of progress, especially in the last couple of months, with new standards coming up in terms of reporting on your ESG numbers and aspects like that. So I think we now have really good frameworks, and we highly recommend to use them, and to be able to not only, put purpose out there as a marketing tool, which you might be called out upon, and rather really be transparent, track your progress, and also show how you're doing. And I think there's been quite an interesting movement recently where companies do come out and actually openly share that maybe they're not yet achieving what they want to achieve, or sometimes even coming out saying, I don't even know how we're going to get there, but there is a big, bold goal, and we're looking for collaborators to get there. So creating that transparency, measuring and reporting, that's building block number 6.
The hope is that these 6 building blocks are actually insightful to you in thinking about how you need to steer and guard your company and your organization. And we'll get back to them in a second when we hand it over to Annie. But before that, we have Al Cook, and he will share insights from his experience in the last months of leading, steering, and dealing with all these questions in his position as a leader in Equinor. So really excited to hear from Al and his experiences. Let's take it away.
Thank you so much for being with us at We Emerge Week. We really appreciate you taking the time. You're a member of the Executive Leadership Committee of Equinor, the energy company. What we're trying to find out with We Emerge Week is how do we emerge stronger together as people, businesses, society, as a planet ultimately? And you as a sort of a leader with lots of responsibility, how do you look at the situation? What's your sense of what is it that we need to do on the business side to emerge stronger from this crisis?
Well, I think it's a big question. It's a real pleasure to be here, at least by video. These days, that's often the best that we can do. But the topic you're asking is a fundamentally important topic for all of us as people, as business leaders, as societal leaders. And I think as we came into 2020, we knew this was going to be a challenging year. The gap between rich and poor is growing. The gap between political parties is growing. The gap between nations seems to be growing. And that was all before coronavirus came to our shores in the first part of the year. And the walls that were growing between countries, between continents, between communities grew even further and faster with coronavirus. And as business leaders, as societal leaders, I think it's our role now to build back better and to give people a sense of hope that by working together, we can get there together. And to give people a sense that if we can pull down those walls, if we can reduce those walls, we can work together in a way that's better for all of us.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And sort of, you know, you using the coin frame of building back better, the optimists as we are, you know, there's this question of if we're now getting back out of this, can we use it in order to, you know, learn, maybe build our economies to be more sustainable, more innovative, look also at Europe as maybe a driver of some of the values that we want to see in the world. You represent the energy sector, which is a hugely influential sector in all of this. Is there actually a chance to use, in a way, the crisis positively to become more sustainable, to think about innovation?
I think there is, and not only that, I think it's essential that we use it. And for us, build back better means build back greener. And there are some really positive signs coming out. I work for Norway's leading energy company, and the Norwegian government has set a strong vision of building back greener. And across Europe, we've seen the European Union come together with its Green New Deal that will build back greener. And I'm sitting today in the United Kingdom, where the UK has made legally binding promises to get down to net zero by 2050. And everything we see from the government here in the UK is commitment towards that and a desire to accelerate as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, and a desire there to accelerate building back greener. So I think there is, and I think that you're beginning to see business responding to that as well. We were very conscious in 2019, coming into 2020, of the huge importance placed for business leaders to show how we build greener. And coronavirus has only added to that determination. And we're coming forward now with real evidence that, particularly in Europe, business is working together with governments and working together with other aspects of society in order to build back greener. And we're seeing those projects come forward now. And particularly as I sit in the energy industry, we realize it's fundamentally important that we take a leadership role here to show people that we can think bigger, we can think longer term, and we can think in a way that grows value for all of us.
And can you break it down for us a bit more what this actually means in practice? Because energy is such a, as you said, sort of a long-term business, you know, lots of infrastructure investments and all that. What's actually a current opportunity in sort of renewables, and what are sort of the stumbling blocks, or what's difficult about this transition?
Well, let me take first the question of what we can do in energy to drive through the energy transition, and then I'll talk about a little bit about what the barriers are to that.
Great.
And I think the first thing that we've seen in energy is the success we've had by cleaning up our act with fossil fuels. And in Europe in particular, the replacement of coal by natural gas has been a real success story. And we've seen countries bring down their carbon emissions and produce energy more cleanly. But even more important than that, we've seen the emergence of even cleaner technologies for developing energy, and in particular, wind and solar. We've seen costs tumble down, and we've seen the beginnings of something which I think should give us all hope, and that is that greener energy can be higher value energy. And here in Europe, we've seen plans now put in place for new wind farms. And one that I'd like to pick on is a wind farm called Dogger Bank, which is in the United Kingdom. It's offshore in the North Sea. And this wind farm has demonstrated that we can produce cleaner energy through wind, and we can also produce greener energy through wind. And we can also bring down the costs of that so that wind energy can compete head on with fossil fuels. And that's the second stage of the decarbonisation. And I think we should draw great optimism from the success of wind and solar projects around Europe. And we should draw great optimism from the success of those projects in bringing down the costs of energy, even as we make it greener. If I was to look further forward, we still have an awful lot of work to do. What happens on those days when the sun doesn't shine and the wind isn't blowing? What do we do then for those days when we rely on fossil fuels for our energy? What do we do about those sectors of industry that rely on natural gas for their energy because there's no way they can replace natural gas currently with wind and solar? And there I think we need to begin the hydrogen revolution. How do we do that? We need to first of all begin by converting natural gas into hydrogen and burying the carbon dioxide produced safely away under the ground. And beyond that, we need to start creating green hydrogen, truly emission-free hydrogen from renewable energy sources going forward. So we're embarking upon this great journey. It started with the transition from coal to natural gas. It continued with the transition from fossil fuels to wind and solar, and it's going to culminate in the transition from natural gas to clean hydrogen.
And that sounds like a massive journey that we're then all on. And so maybe let me close with the question, sort of speaking to all sorts of leaders across industries at the moment. I think one of the key challenges is of course on the human side. How do you deal with the short-term pressures and dealing with sort of business cuts and looking after sort of just after the operation, and on the other hand having these massive goals and plans and knowing that we now need to make a big leap, and just trying to navigate these two different speeds. Just on as a leader, what's your recommendation of dealing with this and just moving forward with energy and optimism?
When we look at all the barriers to a green and just transition, building back better and building back greener, we can see that those barriers are significant, and we're going to need to work together between companies, governments and customers in order to overcome those barriers. I'll give you 3 examples. The first is we need to work on this globally rather than simply as nations. Climate change is a global problem. We can't solve it one country at a time. We have to work together. Particularly, we've now got a year to go until we get together as a global community for COP26. We need to work together, make the most of this year to create global solutions to what is a global problem. The second thing we need to do is to give people the space and the support to achieve these goals. I don't believe that defining the answer to every question is best done by governments or by regulators. I believe that we need to define boundaries, define targets, and allow different businesses around the world to achieve those, and to achieve those in the most economic and carbon-friendly way possible. The third place we need to go is we need to avoid taking sides. This is a really difficult challenge, the biggest of the 3 challenges. On the one hand, we have people who say, look, I don't care about the global economy, I don't care about wealth creation, I don't care about value, all I care about is reducing carbon dioxide emissions. On the other hand, we have people who say climate change doesn't exist, we just need to grow the global economy. business needs to proudly take a pragmatic role in the middle and stand behind policies that we can truly deliver on, stand behind projects we can truly deliver on. And that takes some bravery, because the energy transition, addressing climate, it won't be fast enough for those people who say, look, you need to stop everything now, and whatever the consequences. And it won't be cheap enough for those people who say, look, don't worry about climate change, don't worry about global warming. So it's going to take some bravery to stand in the pragmatic middle and to stand up for solutions that we believe we can deliver on, we believe are the right thing for shareholders, but also for stakeholders.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing these thoughts with us. It would have been amazing to be together in person. I hope that's going to be possible again soon at some point next year. And until then, I wish you lots of good energy and health for pushing this journey forward. Thank you so much. Real pleasure to join you, even if these days it's by video rather than in person. Thank you. Thank you. And bye-bye.
Fantastic that we were able to have Al Cook with us, and a big thanks to him again for sharing his thoughts. The energy sector is so important for the transition that we're all on towards a greener economy. Now, as Katherin said, we want to share with you a little tool that will help you to just pragmatically reflect a little bit on your own organization, be it a business, be it a nonprofit, be a governmental organization. And for that, I have the tremendous pleasure to have Annie Faulkner with us this morning. And I'll just throw it over to you, Annie. And thanks for being with us, and let's take it away.
Super, thanks, Florian. So as Florian said, and you heard from Katherin, even before the pandemic, we had learned how purposeful organizations really do create lasting value. So we had really looked at, what does that mean? It means lasting value for the employee, for the shareholders, for the stakeholders. But for society at large, purposeful organizations really have a great value creation impact. And yet, surprisingly enough, very few organizations were able to really concretely and systematically utilize purpose to create the type of value that they wanted. So we set about looking at the areas that you heard, the 6 building blocks, and to produce a very pragmatic, easy, quick to use tool that would enable you to start the conversation about how do we create value with our purpose as an organization. So what I'd like to do now is to really show you the tool and to step through it with Francie, and then you can get an idea of how easy it is to use. And at the end of the tool, you will get an indicator of where it's really meaningful to start a conversation, to use it in your teams, to use it in your own individual planning, to run workshops, to get involved in movements and organizations, and to use the do queue as a real call to action. So as you see, very easy to start with. And the first area is around transformation with purpose. How to align your purpose with the individual goals of the organization to ensure that you can really deploy alignment and purpose. And you can see here some very simple questions on a scale, strongly agree, 1 to 5, 5 being the strongest. Really, is your purpose aligned? What is your why? And does your why align with your employees, with your team's why as well? The second area is skills and mindset. So it's an inventory of how many growth mindsets do you have in your team, in your organization? How is your growth mindset? Are you very flexible in your thinking? What types of mindsets do you want? Where are you going from where to where? And how do you really train and skill up mindsets to the type of change readiness that we need? We've heard a lot over the last few days about the speed of change readiness. And this second area is really something you can work on together, individually, as a collective, which leads to the next area, which is the movement. The need to really mobilize your teams. We've seen a lot in the last, especially in 2020, how movements can really change the narrative. And here in this very quick and easy gauge. You can see what types of movements you could create. Are you giving the team space to create movements? And how is the communication of the movement getting energy and moving forward? The fourth building block that you heard Katherin and Florian mention is the networked organization. So what we've learned over the years is that we really need to go outside, outside in, inside out, develop a really new view of our ecosystem and network ourselves so that we can use the power of the ecosystem to really open our organizations to change, to new consumers, and to create new markets in perhaps ways we hadn't thought before. This, during the pandemic, has been one of the main areas that we have seen a lot of work in, where organizations have really started to pivot on their business model. Then the fifth area is co-creation or innovation. What much of the research on neuroscience has shown in the last few years is that the collective wisdom is the way to deal with complexity, is that if we use collective minds, if we develop new products and services using the ecosystem, using a broader view of stakeholders and shareholders, we really co-create a better solution, and we have a quicker way of moving into pivots and into new business models. Which brings perhaps the last and most important of the building areas is the bigger purpose. So what are we really measuring here? Alongside financial returns, alongside traditional KPIs, are we really measuring our societal impact? The work that we do that's bigger than us, that really transforms societies, transforms governments, so that we reach types of climate targets, types of sustainability targets that really drive the movement, the network, the mindset of our organization. So once you've completed this very simple tool, you can do it yourself, you can do it collectively with your teams, you can take some reflection time, you can have a facilitation. You get these indicator maps, a very simple and easy to use tool that gives you some ideas of how in all of these 6 areas, these 6 building blocks, you can focus, measure how you're going, measure the change impact that you're having, and really get involved in creating a transformational change for yourself, for your teams, and for the organizations that you work within, and for society. So that's a very quick overview of the DQ tool. We're delighted to have further conversations about it, and we hope you have some fun doing it. And I'd encourage you to do it straight after this session. Thank you, Florian. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Annie. Thanks for being with us this morning. And I hope this was relevant for some of you. It's an open source tool. Everybody can use it. You can pass it along. It's just a way that we've seen that works effectively to get a reflection, get a conversation started about where you are on your journey from, on the one hand, managing the realities right now and transitioning towards the future that you're working on with your colleagues and your teams. Now, as we talked throughout the morning session, you know, this journey of managing these tow speeds is, we see, incredibly difficult, I think, for all of us. We emerge week, therefore, one of the key goals is to bring people together that in really hard times still progressively want to move things forward and galvanize action together and support each other and also be a sounding board for ideas. And last but not least, obviously, we can only push our organizations, our sort of ideas and our strategies forward if we're doing fine ourselves. A company or an organization is nothing else than a collection of people. And so what we wanted to close today's opening with was a quick hello from Jens Lehmann, former soccer player, now coach, manager, investor, on his experience of dealing with difficult times and high pressure situations. Thanks for tuning in this morning. I hope you're having an incredible time in the one or the other action roundtable. I look forward to see you there. Stay safe, stay healthy, and thanks for Jens for joining us this morning.
Jens, thank you so much for being with us at We Emerge Week. We appreciate it tremendously that you take a couple of minutes. As a player, as a manager, as a coach, and now also as an investor, you've been dealing all your life with high pressure situations, and obviously now with the situation the world is in, the health crisis, the economic, the environmental crisis. How do you look at the question of what we need in order to be strong, resilient, and get out of this situation in a positive manner? What would your advice be?
Well, first of all, I always think that you don't have to be scared. Don't show too much fear, and don't get annoyed with all what's going on around you, because if you're getting annoyed, it will be sooner or later it will become a health issue. And we don't need health issues because we are fit, we are alive, and we always have to think, well, it has to stay like that. So I strongly believe in self-regulation of your physical aspect and of your mental aspect. So if you plant good thoughts into your mind, where sometimes the environment is bad, it can help as well.
Can you maybe give us even a more specific example of, imagine somebody that, I don't know, somebody might have lost a job or is in a really tight spot right now. There's a high pressure on someone. From your experience, sort of as somebody who's a high performer yourself and managing and coaching other high performers, what do you think is a good coaching mechanism other than staying positive? What can people do?
First of all, I'm really sorry for all those who have who have lost their jobs already, and who probably gonna lose their jobs as well in the next coming month. It's a unprecedented environment. It's a force majeure, how you can call it. So it's not completely up to yourself that you have lost your jobs or probably had to suffer some other probably tragic moments in the recent months. But anyway, the situation is a little bit down to yourself as well, or if it's completely being taken from outside. So I learned to be self-critical in my whole professional career. Sometimes it helps to actually look at yourself from a different perspective and then see, out of the current environment, what can I do better? Yeah, even if I've lost my job or whatever, what can I do to actually get another job, a better job, being better, being irreplaceable in my next job? And if you try to actually work on that, it will help you to maximize and to achieve your target in changing that situation. That was what helped me a lot in my time when I had disappointments. And I can tell you, I had a lot of disappointments in my professional career because defeat always comes before success.
Great, thank you so much. And the last question, Jens, I know that you're really interested in innovation and you're constantly looking at new ideas and new projects. And sort of, what are you intrigued by at the moment? What do you think is really interesting looking at the future, be it a startup, be it a new way of thinking about teams or performance? What are you curious about at the moment?
Obviously, the biggest benefiters of all this crisis are the technology companies, and that's actually what will drive us in the future. We have to look at jobs or technologies which are quite dilapidated, if I can say like that. So the technology will drive us forward, and it's not easy, but there are some technologies where you can spot the potential and to actually invest into them or believe into them. On the other hand, this whole crisis showed me that if you look at yourself, where you're living, always try to create a little environment where you can feed yourself. Yeah, so take a look at the nature around you. What we done is we planted some vegetables, we planted some trees, because for the next crisis you will never know what's coming. And our children first time learned a big lesson in what can happen. Yeah, if you all of a sudden are restricted in your movements, you probably have to feed yourself. And I think that's a good advice, and it makes you happy. Yeah, planting something around you, seeing it growing, and harvesting something you just see it before. And that is something for the future as well, what I've learned.
Yes, thanks so much for taking the time and for being with us at Reemerge Week. See you soon.
All the best to you. Bye-bye, guys.